This is why Arc Raiders will continue to lose players. First of all, I want to preface that this is my opinion, and I'm not urging people to leave this game, because for the most part, Arc Raiders is a fun game. It has unique maps, the gunplay is really fun, and you have great interactions with players, which I think we haven't seen for a while. There's moments that you can share with other people from across the world, which will stick with you, and they've stuck with me. And that's the main thing I take away from Arc Raiders. And the game itself, Arc, not necessarily Embark, but Arc in itself, what people have done with the game, has allowed for a dedicated fan base to grow and a community to build within itself organically. And I think that's great. There's dedicated streamers now who have unique personalities and content creators who dedicate a lot of their time and their brand to Arc Raiders, and they've built a brand from that. And people come back to watch it, which is fantastic. However, Embark's cracks are beginning to show, and in this video, I would like to discuss why they will begin to show more evidently and how they will continue to lose players. So first off, as most people do, I want to talk about myself. So I got into PC gaming in around 2021, just after COVID. The first extraction shooter I played was Escape from Tarkov. And granted, Escape from Tarkov in itself is a completely different pedigree to extraction shooters. But the exposure console players have had to an extraction shooter compared to the narrative that those who have already experienced an extraction shooter is vastly different, in my opinion. Tarkov and Arc Raiders are completely different games. Escape from Tarkov is a hardcore shooter with a lot more that contributes to it. And I'm not going to diminish what Battlestate Games from Escape from Tarkov developers have done towards the build-up to the release of their game. It has been quite controversial. Escape from Tarkov was the pedigree and the foundational building blocks towards an extraction shooter. An extraction shooter, in my opinion, is a player-based arena game where you come in with a goal, an objective, you get that, and then you leave. But Tarkov, compared to Arc Raiders, has a completely different and more astounding feel to it. In Escape from Tarkov, you have gear fear. You loot that specific thing you're looking for, and the fear and the rush and the excitement you get from having it and the fear of losing it is vastly more of a great experience than in Arc Raiders. Tarkov really does allow for that looter-shooter experience, where I don't think Arc Raiders has that. And there's other contributing factors, like, there's the peanut effect. Burnt Peanut has done a lot for the genre in terms of Arc Raiders, and it had a massive explosion in terms of awareness when he was streaming it, and all those other streamers like Cloaksy, like Tfue, Ninja, Hutch, stuff like that. But Arc Raiders just doesn't have that excitement anymore. And I suppose that's the trope with a lot of games these days. A lot of games have a very big player count, and then they tend to fall off, and then they find their basis, they find their fans, and then they stick. But this is the other thing I want to talk about. The repetitiveness and the repetitive loop gameplay of an extraction shooter. An extraction shooter, at its core stasis, is very simple. You get in, you do what you need to do, you get out. Or you don't. Arc Raiders is very repetitive. And with these new updates coming out, there is nothing that is exciting players and pushing people to want to come back to the game, to find something new, to loot something new, to have those moments with players, to have those moments fighting Arc, those PvP, PvE experiences. And a lot of my viewers who come into my streams, the main thing we talk about when we stream Arc, or when we did stream Arc, was the matchmaking. That was the only thing people wanted to talk about. That and free kits. And I'll get onto free kits in a moment. So with that said, we're going to talk about the lack of trust, delays. So many delays, lots of questions not being answered, and people really wanting to know the state of the game and where it will be in the next 10 years and how the game will play within the next 10 years. And I can appreciate with the state that the gaming development companies are in, layoffs, cutbacks. The implementation of AI is a big contribution as well. And I think a lot of people do forget how, because I'm not a game developer, I don't know, I'm not behind the scenes, but I can appreciate with layoffs and potentially having smaller teams when developing a game and keeping a game fresh, and that live service is quite a demanding task. And for the people over at Embark, this is a really stressful time for themselves with all the controversy and a lot of negative attitude that's going towards them. And I can appreciate that this video is contributing to that. But I just wanted to bring to light my opinions on why that is. Second of all is the lack of balancing in regards to guns and free kits and utility items like trigger nades. Nades have been nerfed again, but I don't think that is a massive contribution to the state of PvP. If people do like to play trios or duos, I don't think these nerfs towards timings and animations will affect PvP gameplay as much. If you run into a team and you instantly get hit by two teenage, you're out of the game. And there's countless clips out there and short videos that show that teenage, I think, will consistently be the meta. And, ratting is a thing, third partying is a thing. So there's no way of stopping that. And again, that falls under that umbrella of a repetitive game. And that's where people's frustrations can come from. But the main thing I want to talk about, apart from the guns, apart from the teenades and ratting and third partying, is free kits. Free kits need to be changed. Tarkov has a great system in which you get one scav. So a scav is essentially the same as a free kit on Arc Raiders. You go in with a random loadout and you use what you have. That's all you have to your ability. And it's that great feeling of, if you do get to have that PvP experience or just PvE, and you have a really low kit, and it's low risk but high reward. Compared to the person who brings in a full kit, they've got high risk, low reward. But in Escape from Tarkov, you can only go in every half hour. There is a timer-based system. And if you do show aggressive towards fellow scavs, you get penalized. And you get another 15 minutes on your counter. And in that way, that player is, decentivized to keep running scavs and use their kits. And then it's essentially they're within that realm of using kits, allowing gear fear to subside, and high risk, high reward. But in Arc Raiders, you can free kit every single raid if you want to. And that is ridiculous. You go in as a trio or a duo, or even just as a solo, whether it's PvE or PvP. You benefit so much from low risk, high reward. And vice versa the other way around, where if you do go in with a kit in Arc Raiders and you come up against a team who's all free kits, or a duo or a solo, and you spend about 5 minutes fighting these people, and you've used your entire kit just to get a free loadout, and all they've got is a kettle one, a rattler one, a feral one, you feel a bit bummed out. There's no reward there. There's no good feeling of, you've successfully taken on a challenge and there's nothing for you there. And then you either reset or you get third partied because you've used up all of your utilities tackling those people. Next, I want to talk about the lack of player decks. We've had 3 player decks or raider decks within the span from November up until May that we're coming up towards now. And in that time, everyone has already completed these. People have already accumulated thousands of credits, which they probably still have on their accounts, which they don't use. And there's just nothing to it. If there's one thing that Arc Raiders and Embark need to take on board, apart from free kits, is also the opportunity for people to, have a goal within the game. Helldivers 2 is a fantastic representation of this. They have loads of war bonds that come out monthly, I believe. When I used to play, I put in a lot of hours. There was countless things you could work towards in terms of getting cosmetics, utilities, guns, vehicles, new banners, new cosmetics for your profile. And these would be consistently added to the game. And that segues onto quests and projects. The quests themselves are lackluster. Tarkov has a similar issue, I thought, when beginning the game. You would go for Kappa, and now that the game's released, you will escape from Tarkov. But there is vast amounts of quests in there which have unique opportunities for you to find a certain item, and you need to get out with that item. If you don't, you need to go back in and get it. So there's that risk, you know, and that adrenaline rush again of having that feeling of having that quest time, like, oh god, I need to leave. You know, I need to get out of here. I've got this. This is what I came in for. Let's go. And I'm sure those who are avid Tarkov players know about the bronze pocket watch and the lore behind that quest. But Arc Raiders doesn't have that. And my main issue is the lack of personality. It's a really cool game, and aesthetically, it has that personality. But the projects themselves are lackluster. I was so excited loading up the new Riven Tides update, and within the first little project you have within the game, it's a little quest, and I was like, okay, here we go. And then I loaded up the next 4 or 5 pages, and it's just loot this root, loot this bit of moss, loot this little shit. And it's just so lackluster. There's nothing there. And looking at the rewards you get as well frustrates me, because the top tier final rewards you receive for doing all of that, looting all that stuff that nobody ever loots, nobody ever acquires, is a guitar, which you can buy from the traders. By the way, with credits, which you also get from one of the player decks. I think it's the Goalie Raider deck. That's not exciting to me. That gives me no drive, and it gives me no incentive to want to interact with such in-game events or projects or quests. And this is what brings me around to my biggest point, which was, remember Stella Montis? Yeah, I know we all have PTSD from that game. That map in itself had a community-based goal. When they first announced it, which was quite recent into the game being released itself, there was a community-led goal to which it allowed people to give up their resources, give up their loot to have the map released early. We have not had anything like that since. We didn't get it for Riven Tides. We haven't got it for any of the new R. And it just, you know, that lack of community goal, it just sucks the personality and life out of the game. Because immersion for me is the biggest thing with games. You want to feel immersed within a game, and you want to, you really want to be within that world and interact with others within that world. And we never got that since. And that's really upsetting to me. The new map in Arc Raiders is not as big as we thought. There was a lot of speculation online that this would be bigger than Spaceport. You know, there was a lot of speculation online that we would be getting AirPod drivers or some form of vehicle to traverse a really big map with unique areas. We haven't got that. It's just another medium-sized map. There are interesting areas which I think would be good for PvP and for PvE, but it's just not what we thought it was going to be. And more importantly, where is this new R? Because I played a good 2.5 hours on stream, and I didn't see it. I did not see it at all. Apparently, it's on night raids, but people are put off by the idea of night raids because it's either rats that go in or people who are really good at the game, and people are put off by the idea of losing all their loot. Hence why they do free kits. And second of all, the new gadgets. I tried out the new gadgets. I went on the beach for about 10 minutes. You know, I thought this is a cool little gimmick, digging up sand, finding treasure. I found a pillow and an apricot. That doesn't excite me. Second of all, I used this new glider gadget, which has good durability and it's fun to use. But at the same time, again, I think it just splits the player base in how people would play. It doesn't last that long. And if you jump from really high heights, I went to Spaceport to test it out in terms of fall damage, and it didn't last. And I actually died. And I lost it. But more importantly, there's so many people who are really good at movement in this game, and we have snap hooks, and it allows people to use these technicalities in grabbing ledges and having really good skills in terms of traversing the verticality and horizontal ways of the map. And I can appreciate that they may have added this because people requested such things, because, you know, there are those who don't have that level of skill to traverse vertically and horizontally, grabbing ledges and diving and jumping, etc., etc. And they obviously may have a different skill tree. But then that just opens them up to getting absolutely blasted out of the sky while gliding, and then they lose that anyway. And it needs to be unique. We need these unique playstyles, but I think we have that, but these new gadgets haven't added anything. So what can we take away from this? I think we need timers on free kits, because it's the biggest problem in Arc Raiders and takes away from a lot of the fun. I think we need to make a lot of these higher base PvP meta equipments and guns more high risk and more unobtainable. Because if you can just make teenades with a little processor and this, and then, you know, you just go in, and I suppose that is the trope of the game, is to farm, and then you've got these things which you can use. But if everyone can make them so easily, then it doesn't become that much of something to pursue, because, you know, the whole idea should be is if you do go up against that Chad and you get them and you beat them and you find that they have these things on you, you're like, oh no, wow, this is awesome. Like, this is really hard. They're a really good player. They have this loot. I can now use it. But at the same time, it gives you that element of fear and excitement when you do come up against that player who has that high level equipment, and maybe you've got a quest item in your hands and you're like, oh god, I'm not going to fight that guy. I'm going the other way. So we need to consider that as well. And we need more community-based goals for people to tackle, and more community-led events for people to collectively work towards together, whether they're PvP or PvE not. But in that sense, going back to the matchmaking, maybe we do need alternative matchmaking, to which, say you are solo and you want to use solo for your farming and be PvE, maybe that's a separate matchmaking compared to when you're in duos or trios and you're granted a more aggressive matchmaking lobby. But I just don't think Embark have got it in them. They want this game to go on for 10 years. I loaded up that raid within those first couple of raids on my stream, similar to other streamers I spoke to and some of my mods and viewers, and everyone had the same feeling, bro. Everyone was disappointed. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that in the future. I hope they can prove me wrong. But what do I know? I'm just a streamer. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I do appreciate all the engagement we get in regards to the comments and likes. My name is Nelly. If you do want to catch our streams, we do stream Monday to Thursday, 2 till 6 p.m. GMT time. We stream over on TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. So if you want to jump in and hang out with us while we play some more single-player games, as well as some competitive games, I'll see you there. Be there, be square, be yourself.